What is a disturbing fact you wish you could unlearn? There's a type of crayfish that farms sea stars by cutting all their water legs off and eating its arms all the way to the center, but leaving the center intact. It then feeds the sea star with kelp to keep it alive so it regenerates, and then repeats the process. That 1 million seconds ago was last week, when the Challenger exploded in 1986. The astronauts didn't die from the explosion, nor did they die from depressurization as NASA has initially claimed. There is some evidence they turned on their personal oxygen supply. They died from impact when they hit the surface of the Atlantic Ocean. They were in freefall for 2.5 minutes. Parrots often bond with a keeper, from their perspective, as a lifelong romantic partner. If the person dies, or the parrot is displaced, they can go into massive depression and pluck out their own feathers. I learned on Reddit that a woodpecker will tap enough to break into a baby bird's skull and slurp up their brains. Since koalas eat so much eucalyptus and that stuff produces extremely flammable gases, koalas explode when they get in a wildfire. If you have an intestinal blockage, you can burp up farts and have fecal vomit, which is basically just throwing up your poop. In most cases, when a parasite gets into the brain, they don't remove it. They just kill it with some sort of acid or something with a similar effect. Then just let the body calcify it. It's weird cause you'd think that the parasite could still do something. Edit. They don't kill it with acid. What happened to the child actor who played Ducky in The Land Before Time? The Chiquita Banana Company colluded with the CIA to overthrow the democratically elected government of Guatemala, leading to a civil war that lasted 46 years and directly contributed to the ongoing migrant crisis at the border. They called it Operation PB Success. Joseph Fritzel, the man who imprisoned his daughter in an underground cellar for 24 years and arped her approximately 3,000 times. A disturbing fact is thinking about how many cases like this are going on right now that we don't know about or won't know about. Sometimes, old people don't break their bones because they fall. They fall because they break their bones. Spider legs operate via the hydraulic pressure of their blood. My biology teacher had a Q&A session before Christmas and one student asked if it's possible to be allergic to your own blood. Unfortunately, you can. Just imagine your own immune system destroying your red blood cells. Constant hemorrhaging. Constantly feeling cold and out of breath. When we got back from winter break, we saw a new face in class. A former student of my bio teacher who just so happened to have this disease, and we spent the whole class asking questions. Yogurt is useful for decomposing dead bodies, since it's already got concentrated and pre-cultured bacteria. The fact that dogs like squeaky toys because it sounds like their prey crying out in pain. We tried to give my dog squeaky toys for the first few years we had her, but the moment it let out a squeak, she would let go, start nosing it and licking it in concern, and never bite it again. We stopped buying her those because it was causing her too much guilt. She's an angel. Where's that rabies post? Jeffrey Dahmer drilled a hole into some victims' skulls and tried pouring different toxic liquids into the hole. He was trying to make a sex slave that could eat and drink but could in no way fight back or escape. The worst fact is that victims might survive the first hole with all brain function intact and live long enough to be fully aware they were going to get a second or third hole drilled. One of the victims managed to escape. The police were called, and somehow the police turned the 14-year-old victim back over to Dahmer. Eater, thanks for the awards. Never gotten this many upvotes before. Wish it wasn't such a sad fact though. My mom told me I have my grandma's nipples. Edit. Yes. For those asking, I'm a dude. A pig ejaculates enough semen to fill a 12-ounce Coke can. Edit. Apparently, Japan bombed China with fleas infected with bubonic plague during World War II. Often people that fracture their tibia, big shin bone, but not their fibula, Thin shin bone. Think they're okay to stand up, and when they put weight through that leg then the fibula breaks too. There is a type of insomnia that will kill you. Life expectancy is around a year after onset. Any details about the toy box killer's ways of torturing his victims? The guy was a serial rapist. Just leave it at that. TLDR. Don't retire in Vegas. In some states in the USA, particularly Nevada, your doctor can basically sell you to a company. If you're a senior with an untrustworthy doctor, they can throw memory loss, hysteria, confusion etc. on a piece of paper and hand it over to a company. This company can claim guardianship over you without you ever meeting or hearing of them. And they can take you out of your house, sell your house and all of your belongings, put you in a nursing home and have full control over your finances. They can force you to take medication every day for the rest of your life that make you confused and unable to think clearly until you die. They can buy your family from visiting you as well. And it's all 100% legal. Before you even find out it's happened to you, there's already been a court hearing where the judge is persuaded into signing your life into some stranger's hands based on your doctor's false claims. Not that I want to unlearn it though. I think more people should know about it. Starfish can get infected and rip themselves apart. That children are currently being decapitated in northern Mozambique right now. Every single fact about bedbugs. That a dolphin committed suicide after falling in love with its handler that used to jerk the dolphin off. When someone has their head cut off, the screaming when they sever the throat sounds just like pigs. Surgeons used to operate on infants without anesthesia, including open heart surgery. They have stopped this. However, in the 1980s, I had a surgery to put tubes into my ears as a young child. My parental guardian opted to not use anesthesia as she was worried I would become addicted to drugs later in life. The single most painful moment of my life. It felt like sub-zero ice picks were digging into my ear. It was so painful I had an out-of-body experience. Still did drugs later on too. So that didn't really work out at all. Edit. Can't type tonight. That tumors can grow teeth and other limbs like fingers, hands, toes, and feet. Edit. And a lot people are also saying hair and eyeballs too. I was a lot happier before I knew that tonsil stones were a thing. As a kid I never knew what those stinky rocks that I would cough up were when I had bad allergies. As an adult I asked my dentist and she pulled out the size of a pea. Seals are pink juvenile penguins. Edit. And then eating them. I saw an X-ray video of proper hand position when you're at a computer. The way the forearm bones moves is disgusting. There is a chance you might fall in a sleep paralysis-like state when under anesthesia, meaning you'll feel your surgery while being unable to move. I feel bad for Divolo now. I've woken up twice under anesthesia and the second time was before my procedure. I heard the doctor and nurse arguing about whether or not to go ahead with it because my heart rate suddenly skyrocketed and my nurse was insistent I was awake. The next day, if your pillow is over 2 years old, up to 10% of its weight is dust mite fecal matter. Parmesan cheese and vomit contain butyric acid and it is responsible for the most distinct aspects of their smells. Also why Hershey's chocolate has its distinctive flavor. There's such a thing as 4th, 5th, and 6th degree burns. 4th degree means all the layers of skin at the burn site are gone. 5th degree means the muscle under the skin is damaged. 6th degree is literally down to the bone. Is 7th degree just cremation? There were 4 HS suicides in my town a year for 10-12 years. The amount of mental health issues was so high that when Stanford came across the street to help set up a mental health counseling service, 500 appointments were made. In a school of 2,000 students. But people were happy because more people went to Stanford each year. 15-20 academically pressured. Also a few prof children. And Harvard. 15. then committing suicide, so it was ignored until the CDC investigation. They way flies eat. The South Korean government murdered 200,000 girls, boys, adults, and families with zero basis or even a trial. The Bodo League massacre. And they continue to cover it up today and hope the world doesn't find out. That to find people who download CP, police have to upload CP with a virus or something to track them down. Fetal abductions, aka caesarean kidnapping. I learned about this as my wife was bedridden in the hospital carrying our first. Really struck a nerve. The sound a human makes hitting a concrete floor head first from about 12 feet up. Also the visual. A Queen of Scotland, if my memory is good, was sentenced to death by beheading. Bear in mind that a beheading was always seen as a quick death. One chop and that's done. She got up to the chopping block and made her prayers. The executioner took 3 swings to properly behead her. I recall reading how she screamed in terror and pain before the second hit cut her voice. I forgot the details of much. But executioners were not flawless in their handling of sentences. Edit. Whoa. I didn't expect this to blow up overnight. Thank you for the awards, kind strangers. Hence Dr. Guillotine inventing the guillotine for humanitarian reasons. He was against executions but understood that they would happen regardless, so he invented a method that made it as quick and painless as possible. Why am I willingly learning all the facts that people wish to unlearn? Reddit hired pedo apologist Amy Channeler, and now Reddit is censoring people from saying they hired pedo apologist Amy Channeler. Blobfish. In their natural environment, they are actually not that ugly looking. The reason they look so horrific in all those pictures is because their natural environment is deep beneath the ocean surface. And when they're caught, they are exposed to catastrophic decompression as they're railed to the surface. Gangrene exists. The murder of Junko Furuta. I read true crime stories every now and then, but this is by far the most gut-wrenching story I've ever heard. I have no idea how the parents didn't end up in jail for that one. They knew for like a month that their son was torturing this girl and holding her hostage. Every single person who knew but didn't do anything to try to help her should be in jail for life. There are a lot of Thai parents in this world, but talk about being a complete and utter failure on a whole new level. I can understand loving your kid, but you do not enable that type of behavior by refusing to turn them in. And aren't some of those boys free now? I do not think that anyone who would do what they did to her could ever be successfully rehabilitated. They are literally evil. Most murderers don't keep their victim alive for a month and slowly torture them to death. Even among murderers, these guys were particularly heinous. So, I'm tall. And I was especially tall when I was younger. I was probably about 12 at the time. And a local basketball coach was trying really hard to get me to join the team. And I was very close, but I backed out last minute and I don't remember why. But thank God I did. A few years later, that same coach was arrested for child molestation and possession of CP. I feel so bad for the other kids who just wanted to play basketball. Dolphins like arping for fun. Wish I could unlearn that since I used to like swimming with them. Also, sea otters sometimes arpe baby seals to death. And sea elephants arpe penguins. Nature is ed up. There was a time in England where you could feed your pet to the lions in a zoo to avoid paying. The entire background story of the admin Reddit hired guy who I worked with when I was 15 turned out to be a convicted child molester. He never touched me, but he was definitely really uncomfortably friendly around me. In Japan, when you have surgery, the doctor shows you what they removed and explain about it. It was a bit shocking to see. What? They don't do that in your home country? No sir. They do not. Only about 50% of the cells in your body are you. The rest are microbes that exist as part of your microbiome. That raccoons have 2 sets of fur. Because now I'm jealous. The Story of Jon Jones. The cave explorer who got stuck upside down inside Nutty Putty caves. For close to 24 hours he was jammed between two rock formations head first. Basically hanging upside down. Unable to move. He breathed in and wiggled into a crevice thinking it got bigger and he could turn around. When his lungs expanded he was stuck. He died because being stuck head first made all the blood rush to his brain and his organs started to shut down. His brother tried to rescue him and his pregnant wife was outside the cave. To this day his body is still stuck in Nutty Putty caves. Learned this from mental health nursing. To cure mental illness in females. Way back when, probably 1800s early 1900s, UK doctors set up clinics where mental ill women would come to get touched. Women would go from clinic to clinic not just because it felt great, but because they thought it was the cure for their mental illness. Doctors eventually couldn't keep up with the demand, wrist cramps as you could imagine. This led to the invention of the DLDO. It's not so disturbing. Just downright weird. Wish masturbation really was the cure. We'd all be pretty happy if it was. Edit. Absolutely my bad. I definitely meant vibrator. And not DLDO. Brigham Young University experimented on homozoles. These experiments involved placing electrodes on their testicles. These were done far more recently than you'd believe. The fact that male cats have spikes on their penises to stop the female from pulling out. Also another fact that isn't back but is kinda funny weird. Duck penises are shaped like corkscrews. And don't forget that ducks rapidly evolve their attack penises and defense vaginas to try to combat their RP-fueled society. The vaginas will quickly evolve even just over 1 or 2 generations to corkscrew in the opposite direction as the predominant penises in their local population are. How many people on Reddit want to talk about raccoons up your ass? Horses eat chicks with 0s. When you die your bowel system completely loosens up and you everywhere. There are fish that live inside sea cucumbers assholes. During the Rwandan genocide, which lasted about 100 days, over 1 million people were killed. Most of them by roving bands armed with only machetes. Forgive my unscientific terminology. But basically there is a female whale, maybe a blue whale or a sperm whale? I don't remember the species at all, who was born with some type of genetic defect or physical anatomical abnormality, something like that causes her vocalizations to be produced at a different sound frequency than the other whales of her species. Because of this, the other members of her species cannot hear or perceive her vocalizations. So this poor whale has spent her whole life wandering through the world's oceans all alone, trying unsuccessfully to communicate with other whales who basically don't even know she exists. Edit. Minor typo spelling error. Edit 2. Not to be crude or anything, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a raging karma boner right now. So thanks for that. Edit 3. Shout out to you Shadow and Polish, as well as several others, who did a little research and shared with everyone that this particular whale is called whale 52. Because the sound frequency of her vocalizations is 52 Hz. Yay knowledge. Double yay for knowledge sharing. Edit 4. How us about it? Incorrect fingering and embouchure on my saxophone. I used to play in some band that was world famous in our town for singing and playing out of tune for entertainment at feasts and in bars. Now I'm following lessons to really play the instrument as it should. People who fell or jumped from the Twin Towers hit the ground at nearly 120 miles per hour. Manatees have vaginas that are the most anatomically similar to humans. Manatees may also be the inspiration for myths about mermaids. Beautiful half-fish women that lured sailors to their deaths. Connecting those dots has been mentally scarring. That my GF has been with someone else our entire relationship. Reddit hired an admin who appointed their father as their campaign manager, who is a convicted child rapist, and now Reddit is censoring all posts about this. All of the shit about otters and dolphins. No thank you. secretly loving this thread. Growing old sucks. If you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to financial compensation. My in-laws were swingers. The right to protest has been made illegal in several American states. A study by WWF found we consume about 5 grams of microplastics a week, roughly the equivalent to eating an entire credit card. That animal crush fetish exists, and generally most types of abuse PRN. That Reddit hires people who support child RP like Amy Challoner. The Orca from the Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess evolved from lost wings and Hylians into breeding after the events of Skyward Sword. You can bite off your fingers as easily as biting a carrot, but your brain stops you. But if your finger goes numb, gets pins and needles, you could literally bite it right off. I heard this isn't true. I think the experiment the guy did was he put a carrot beneath his finger and bit down. Split the carrot, but his finger suffered no such fate. Although, I've heard of the tongue thing actually happening. Female genital mutilation is still practiced in Islamic societies around the world. Maybe some other societies as well, but I'm pretty sure it's by far more prevalent among Muslims. Super Ed. If someone tried to do that to my child, I would destroy them. Torture exists in this reality, and that the human body can survive well past many tortures until the end. That people born female are hitting puberty at younger and younger ages. There's a documentary of a little girl who had her first period at only 6 years old. I myself hit puberty at 8. I talk a lot about it on my account. It caused a lot of trauma in my life, and it angers me rather than comforts me to know that there's others out there who've had to go through the same thing. It steals childhoods. Sprinkle in some endometriosis and you've got one hella disturbed kid. Ducks are rapists. Pretty much anything about prawns. Edit. Oh. This blew up. And it's my first awarded post. And on my cake day. Too. Also. SO to X-Files and Our Town for teaching me about prawns in the first place. Shark or chicken? Anyone? Wait a minute. Why am I reading a thread full of facts people wish they could unlearn? I'm actively choosing to learn an endless number of facts that people have said they wish they could learn. Why? Reading the synopsis of a Serbian film. That the Human Centipede trilogy exists. All the downsides and dangers of pregnancy are the reason I still have no children. I'm not a child free. But I'm not ready to involve myself into the process that can leave me that miserable for the rest of my life. Also including a very high chance of me dying in the process. I know many women ended up well. Still. Many didn't. And I know hormones could make me feel good and justified despite everything. But not after I learned that much. A man named Pelolin slit his wrists and then shot himself in the head, and a photo of his dead body was used as album art. The album is infamous and controversial for bearing a photograph of vocalist dead, Volin. Shortly after his suicide in April 1991. 6. The photograph was taken by guitarist Euronymous, Arsath. Shortly after he entered the cabin the band shared and discovered the body. 7. Euronymous took bits of Dead's skull and made them into necklaces for members of the black metal scene. Including the band's drummer Helhammer. What in the? Necrobutcher. The band's bassist. Was so disgusted with Euronymous' actions that he left Mayhem. He was replaced by Burzum's Varg Vikernes, who murdered Euronymous 2 years later. Yup. When I fart. It's not me farting. It's tiny organisms in my body. I'm farting on their behalf. Just gonna toss out an RI bleach for those of us who read too much of this thread. That gyro is a thing and people love it. There's even a subreddit for it which I will not link because you should not go there. Honey is literally bee vomit. There are more ants in a given area than there are people on Earth. That people are only capable of doing the best that they know how. It's nicer to just be baffled or get angry at stupidity rather than understand what you're seeing. It's a burden because then pretty soon you realize people twice your age acting stupid. Then your boss or supervisor. And then oh my god. Then the facade is pulled bare. In the realization that there is only so much one can know in a lifetime. And from then on, every politician you hear speak, pundit, expert, academic, parent or just an opinionated asshole barfing insecurity is quite possibly just as lost and confused and about the world as you are. It would be nice to and read the story of Junko Furuta. Someone once told me that orphanages in Africa are eerily quiet. When she asked the caregivers about it, they told her that when babies are brought in they cry for 48 hours straight. But then stop. Because no one is coming anyway. This effing breaks my heart every time I think about it. I know what it sounds like when a human body is mangled under a train car. I was a passenger. And it was a probable suicide. Everybody gets cancer. You can say cancer all day. But cancer is the one doing the eyeing. It's not even some evil entity. It's just your genes eyeing up the recipe to reproduce your body cells. Mary Shelley, writer of Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's mum. Sex before marriage? Over my dead body. Young lady. Mary Shelley. The international sex slave trade is $1 trillion business. China is committing genocide in literal concentration camps and we all keep trading with them. Beaver and elk glands secrete vanilla flavoring. As it happens, it was something I learnt about on Reddit about 4 years ago and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. To the extent I have considered seeking professional help to either deal with it or work out a way to forget it. Serious trigger warning for any parent. Severe violence towards children. The Cambodian killing tree.